Welcome back, guys. We have another beautiful student with us today. This is Desirée Britton. How are you, babe?
I'm good, thanks. How are you doing, Jade?
That's good. Yeah, really good. Thank you. So, we wanted to bring Desiree onto the call today just because she's done some amazing work in some of our programs. So, we obviously want to shine light for her and celebrate all her wins, but she does have some interesting stories around her business and just how she got to this point. So, we just want to hear everything that you want to share with the listeners today and see how you came to this journey. So, tell us a little bit about what you were doing before you started your coaching program.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you so much for having me on, Jade. I'm really excited to have this
Yeah.
conversation. So, before I did my coaching program and did launch and really got into this industry, I was studying. Actually, I was a student for 5 years. I studied psychology and holistic nutrition, as well as child, youth, and family development. And I was really at quite a pivotal time, I guess, in my career journey when I did enter into the coaching industry, and it really happened quite organically as well. I was not even aware of this industry, to be honest, until I moved to Australia, and I was kind of exploring like what kinds of online options that I could step into with my career, because I knew that I would be kind of living abroad for some time, and I wanted to be able to have like more time and location freedom as well in my career. So it all just happened really organically, and I can say for sure that the first year of my coaching business was really bumpy. I felt like I had very little direction in regards to how to set up my systems and just how to really get my business off the ground. And it was when I found Launch that kind of shifted my business in a whole new direction and really gave me the momentum that I needed to actually start seeing my vision come to life.
Yeah, beautiful. And we're very happy and lucky to have you as part of our company as well. So, very proud as a student. You've done some amazing things. And recently, Desiree hit our 10K club milestone. So, you have done some amazing work in the program. But you mentioned, obviously, when you came over to Australia, how long ago was that?
That was just over 2 years ago. I came here
Beautiful.
in July of 2019,
2019,
and
cool.
yeah, been here ever since.
Yeah, awesome. So, what was your plan of attack before you moved over here? Did you always want to move to Australia to pursue your business and stuff, or did that happen for another reason?
Yeah, so I actually, like I said, I didn't even know that the coaching business was really a
Mm,
thing. I wasn't really aware of that industry because in my undergraduate degree, I felt like I was very conditioned to sort of see my career in a quite conventional
mm,
lens.
yeah.
So I always kind of pictured myself to do my master's of psychology and psychotherapy and potentially even a PhD.
Yeah,
And
wow.
I really just envisioned myself like kind of on this conventional educational pathway for quite some time. The reason that I moved to Australia was actually because I fell in love with an Australian. I was living in
Oh.
Whistler, Canada. Yeah. And he was Australian and he was over there and he couldn't stay there anymore. So he had to move back home to where he grew up in Victoria. And I was like, you know what? I'm coming with you. It was really sporadic. And that was where it was kind of just this very organic, but also very bumpy journey
Yeah.
into the coaching industry because I knew that I was really passionate about helping people. I knew that it was really important to me to continue pursuing a meaningful career, even though I was overseas and kind of adjusting to a new lifestyle. And I knew that I wanted to be able to create something for myself that
Yeah.
I could continue to build upon regardless of what happened with my living situation, like whether I ended up
Yeah.
going back to Canada or staying here. So yeah, it really was just like this pretty big shift from this kind of conventional education pathway into more of entrepreneurship. But I would say that
Mm.
I always had an interest in entrepreneurship, and there was something within me that always kind of wanted to do something of my own. I just kind
Yeah.
of envisioned it being more of like opening a clinical practice or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So obviously there's the I wouldn't say big difference, but obviously in terms of entrepreneurship and running things your way, the difference between being a qualified psychologist, which is the route you were going down, and then discovering entrepreneurship and the coaching realm and having your business. What was that deciding moment for you to go, you know what, maybe it's not psychology, maybe it's exploring the entrepreneurial world and what else is out there? What was that moment like for you, and how did you come across that decision?
Honestly, like I said, it was really organic. I felt like
Yeah.
it wasn't even really an intentional decision. And I
Mm.
still do contemplate doing my master's of
Yeah.
counseling psychology. It's something that still is kind of on my heart. But I think for me, I had a very personal experience within my own like healing and self-development journey where I was seeing therapists on and off for a good 10 years, I'd say. And something that I experienced within that journey was just feeling that there was really like this piece missing where I didn't feel like I was really gaining like tangible tools and strategies to propel my life forward. And I was kind of noticing that anytime I'd go to therapy, I felt like I was really just focusing a lot on the past, and it
Yep.
didn't really help me feel like I was moving in the direction that I wanted to go. So I think for me, having had that personal experience, whenever I envisioned my kind of helping profession coming to life, I knew that there was something that I wanted to do differently. I just wasn't so sure what that was exactly. And it was when I started experiencing coaching myself,
Mm-hmm.
and seeing the benefits of coaching that became really passionate about pursuing that pathway. So I would say it happened more from a personal experience
Yeah.
and really seeing how powerful the coaching space can be because, like I said, I wasn't really exposed to that back in Canada.
Yeah.
But as soon as I was, I realized how powerful it was, and it was something that I definitely wanted to incorporate into my career pathway as well.
Yeah, cool. And you mentioned it wasn't a really big thing over in Canada. Do you mean entrepreneurship, or like the coaching NLP type stuff was missing? Like, what was the difference between Canada and here for you?
I would say that entrepreneurship is definitely existent in Canada, and I'm
Yeah.
sure the coaching space is too, but it just definitely wasn't as prevalent. I
Yeah.
think where I live now on the Gold Coast, especially, there's a lot more kind of digital nomads and people
Yeah.
living more unconventional lifestyles. And I remember actually one of the first coaches that I ever started following on Instagram, his name is Preston Smiles.
Hmm.
And I didn't even know he was a coach, to be honest. I just liked his content and I would follow it. I think I started following it when I was like 18 or something like
Hmm.
that. And so I had been following him for quite a long time. And then when I moved to Australia, I started seeing that he was doing some events around here in the area, and the chips kind of all just fell quite naturally. Like I
Yeah.
became more and more exposed to it. And then I guess because I was kind of interested in this world, I was naturally meeting a lot more people who were on this path as well. Whereas in Canada, because it wasn't really a part of my awareness, I think I just wasn't really as involved in attracting those types of people into my life. So it's very
100%.
possible that it does exist over there in equally as prevalent ways, but I just
Yeah.
didn't know that.
Yeah.
I'm not too sure, to be honest.
You didn't have your goggles on. It's funny that what you actually search for, the universe like makes it show up for you around you. So you're probably very grateful that it is showing up in these ways, because look where you are now. That's really cool. Yeah.
Thank
And you
you.
mentioned, well, thank you for sharing about your personal journey. I think it's really important, especially for people listening. What we tend to find, especially with our students, is a lot of people go through um, in order to launch their business, it's either something they've gone through and they've overcome, or it's something they specialize in. Like, that's how they determine what their business is going to be. And you mentioned for you, it was identifying those missing pieces that you got yourself in whether it was an NLP tool or a little bit of communication styles or anything in particular for coaching. What was it that was missing for you that you've now interpreted into your business and that you give back to your clients? What was it that was missing?
I think it was two things, to be honest. One is definitely NLP, like learning more about the unconscious mind was really significant for me. I think that a lot of the time we try to fix conscious problems on a conscious level, and that doesn't always
Mm,
work out so well
love
because
that.
we have a limited perspective of our conscious mind, obviously.
Yeah.
For anybody who's not aware of this, you know, up to 95% of your behavior and actions and thoughts do stem from your unconscious mind. So it's really quite powerful. And I think that was something that was only briefly kind of brushed over in my psychology degree. So definitely understanding the unconscious mind was really powerful for me. And I still continue to see amazing results with my clients when we do NLP work together and we do work on that more unconscious level. And then I think as well, the other missing piece was really positive psychology. So I did a positive psychology coaching certification alongside the NLP certification that I did with the launch program. And I think that's a really crucial bit that's used quite often in the coaching space is really positive psychology in the sense that we're looking at how can we improve the quality of your life and what are the tools and strategies and things that you might need to implement or connect with on an internal and external level in order to really facilitate that dream that you have on your heart. So I think a lot of the time in more kind of conventional therapy settings, we spend a lot of energy looking at what's not really going right for us. And I definitely think that there's a time and a place to honor that. And it's something that, if you're in that space and you're listening, I definitely encourage you to explore that. But for me personally, that positive psychology piece was really quite crucial in my personal development journey. So it's definitely something that I emphasize in my coaching practice now as well.
Yeah, cool. Is that an actual, because you mentioned it's a qualification that you got, the positive psychology. I've actually never really heard of it. How is it different to NLP? Like, is it different communication styles or different tools altogether? Like, what's the contrast there between the two?
Yeah, so basically, positive psychology is a stream of psychology that I think started to be developed in the 1980s or 1990s, but don't quote me on that. And essentially, it looks at, like I said, the positive elements of a person's well-being that need to be facilitated in order to create that life vision. So whether we're looking at like your value system and living in more alignment with that, whether we're looking at traits of like self-compassion, it's really just a framework to understand an individual and to understand the relationship between that individual's well-being and their life. And so psychology, the field of like therapy and psychology and counseling, did initially start out with more of this positive psychology underlying in the field, but then once World War II happened, psychology became a lot more focused around kind of that problematic lens of healing from trauma and focusing on kind of mental health issues and things like that. And so it's only been in more recent years as our collective kind of quality of life has improved that positive psychology has started to resurface again.
Yeah, wow. I suppose all of that combined, like everything that you've learned, really just creates this perfect little service bubble for you, which is what your business is. So that's beautiful. Thanks for clarifying that. I feel like I've learned something today.
Yeah, no worries.
That's so cool. So you mentioned when you first came over and you were trying to get your business up and running, you had a few bumps in the road and some challenges. Do you want to talk about what really stood out for you and how you kind of overcame those challenges and what they were?
Yeah, for sure. So I think that honestly, my kind of dharma, so to speak, like in my business, I combine a lot of Eastern philosophy with Western psychology because I'm also a yoga teacher. So when I say dharma, I mean like, I guess my purpose in life has been really deeply intertwined with my personal experiences. So what I've noticed myself is that my personal development journey and healing journey often is tightly interwoven with the things that I'm contributing to my community and clients. So something that I really, really deeply struggled with when I moved to Australia was feeling out of alignment in my own lifestyle and feeling really disempowered because I was actually experiencing a lot of really deep triggers within my relationship. Obviously, moving to a new country and having so many areas of my life just change very rapidly. That was really difficult for me. And so now that's something that I really help my clients with, is living from that place of alignment and empowerment because of those personal experiences. And I think that that kind of difficulty really influenced my business because, of course, if you're not feeling a sense of alignment within yourself, it's going to be very difficult to kind of promote something like life coaching, for example, because you're not embodying the thing that you are helping other people with. So I think for me, a really important learning curve within my business was really taking in my sense of embodiment in regards to the things that I am helping other people with. And it's something where if you're listening to this podcast and you're kind of struggling to get your business off the ground, I'd really deeply encourage you to reflect on what is happening in your own life and how is this tied to the things that you promote in your business, and how can you really try and step back and create more integrity and alignment in regards to the things that you preach and the things that you practice, because of course that's only going to increase your confidence and also your competence as you become more embodied in your teachings.
That is beautiful. Sorry, I'm taking notes here as you're out. I'm like, this is good stuff. That's amazing that you bring that up, because in the last couple of weeks in our programs, a lot of the subjects have been around values, because we teach it in our Masters of Coaching and we touch on it lightly in the Art of Coaching, which is some of our programs. And what we were saying last week was kind of motivation is a myth, right? If you're living in alignment with your values, then that is when you're living your purpose, you're fully driven, you're determined, and you're motivated, right? And I like the way that you are kind of teaching your clients that if they're in alignment and they have a full awareness and understanding of what their core belief systems are and what they value to their core, it doesn't matter what environment you show up in, what country you live in, or, you know, what relationship dynamic you're in, as long as you're living in alignment with those values, they kind of feel a bit more centered and calm. Is that what you're saying? Like, you kind of help them get on the right track by identifying that about themselves?
Yeah, definitely. And it's something that I support both my life coaching clients with as well as my business mentees,
Mm.
because I think it's equally valuable whether you're looking at life in general and overall satisfaction or business like we're talking about.
Mm. Yeah, that's fascinating. That's so cool. Really powerful stuff. And you mentioned you came over, was it 2019, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah. So on top of that, obviously COVID hit in Australia in 2020. And you had only just newly kind of launched your business as well. So tell me what that kind of era was like for you and how you got through it.
Yeah, honestly, not gonna lie, like the first year I was in Australia was easily one of the most difficult years of my life. I feel like it was just so much happening so quickly, so many changes, so many adjustments, and I was also, like I said, just in a really crucial point in my life where I was trying to, I guess, really hone in on my identity after
Yeah.
having studied for so long and just newly entering, I guess, the world of full adulthood.
Yeah.
It was a really big adjustment. So I think experiencing COVID during that time definitely added a lot of pressure in that way. But at the same time, it weirdly gave me, I guess, permission to kind of be in a bit of a lower place in my life. I think because I was
Interesting.
struggling prior to COVID,
Yeah.
adjusting to living in Australia and whatnot. And I was already feeling quite isolated because when my partner and I moved to the Gold Coast, neither of us had like jobs lined up, family, friends. We just moved here completely fresh. So it was really difficult to adjust to that, and just not knowing anybody or having any connections did leave me feeling quite isolated. And I think when the rest of the world started to kind of go into isolation, it weirdly gave me this sense of connection almost, because I knew that
Mm.
other people were also experiencing disconnection in their lives.
But you had
So,
a head start.
yeah,
Like, I've already
exactly.
been isolated with no job. I'm good.
Yeah, literally. I used to joke about it with my mom actually, because I'd
Yeah.
be like, yeah, you know what? COVID's not changing anything for me. I'm
Aw.
already unemployed. I'm already
Yeah.
disconnected. But I think that that time in my life was really crucial to being where I'm at now in my business, because it just gave me that much more passion behind what I do now, because I understand so deeply what it's like to be really disconnected from the vision that you have for yourself and to be in a really low place. And I think it just fully integrated the value of the things that I teach now for me. So I think that there's something that we can honor in every experience, whether it's a high or a low in life.
100%. And that was so beautifully said. And I'm glad because I've spoken to a few people about their business with COVID and just their personal lives in general. And obviously there's always two sides to the coin, right? But a lot of people I'm speaking to have this optimistic outlook of, yeah, it's been crap, but it's also taught me X, Y, and Z. And for you, having that moment where you felt aligned and then you understood your passion and it gave you that burning sense to, this is what I need to do now and move forward, it is huge. So I'm really, really happy that it gave you that. What are some things specifically that you did for you personally to get through that time? Because obviously already being in that down kind of mindset about moving to a new country, you don't have a job, and just feeling a bit isolated, and then COVID on top of that, what are some things you did personally to get through that, whether it's for your mental health or physically or moving towards your business, whatever you want to talk about?
Yeah, thank you. I think that we really need to be mindful to honor all aspects of our being because they are all so interconnected. And there were a few really key practices that I leaned into during that time. One was physical activity. So I made an effort to get outside every single day, whether that was doing yoga or running or just going for a walk. And that was really important for me, I think, because it allowed me to have space to just process my feelings and my thoughts. And of course, the endorphins that we experience from exercise are amazing for your mental health as well. So that was one of them. I think it also really helped me in that sense to maintain a routine with my exercise because I think when you don't have these other kind of stabilizing factors like work or community, it can be really easy to lose your sense of self-esteem. And I think that self-care is deeply integrated with self-esteem. So when we treat our bodies and our minds with care, we are reinforcing to our unconscious mind that we are worthy of care.
Wow.
And so I think that that was really important on a really holistic level. I also leaned really deeply into mindfulness practices. So, really taking the time to journal out my feelings and just give myself that coherent space to honor what was coming up because there was a lot that was coming up during that time. And then just taking time to get quiet with myself, like whether it was meditating or reading a book, just taking the space for my mind to kind of disengage from the stressors of everyday life and give myself the opportunity to really feel into what was coming up for me, whether that was the desire to kind of not think about all the stressors and just dive into a book, or whether it was the experience of just sitting and meditating and honoring kind of where I was at. So those were kind of three practices that really helped me get through that time. And again, they're all things that I teach my clients now because I just so deeply understand the value of these things.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And do you think it's important to stick with those same rituals, whether times are tough or going really well? Or do you say, either for yourself or to your clients, that you might have different rituals for when things are going south or when things are doing really well? Like, what's your take on that?
I think that we need to be really mindful of having a sense of self-compassion because I think sometimes, and I see this all the time with my clients, we have a lot of pressure to be quite rigid in our routines. And I think there's this kind of misconception that if you have this very rigid routine, especially as an entrepreneur, that this will equate to success. So we see people talking about like the 5 a.m. club and getting up at like 4 in the morning and doing this giant 3-hour routine. But I think for every single human being, we're all very unique and we need to treat ourselves as unique beings. So really tapping into what it is that you actually need and what is your intention behind that. So if you are engaging in this rigid routine every single day just because you think that's what you should do, you're probably not going to experience results. Whereas if you actually tap into your intention you can move from a place of honoring what your need is that you're trying to fulfill. So if you're in a place where you've been, working 5 shifts in a row, maybe you're in hospitality and you have been staying up until 3 in the morning because of it, you're probably not going to want to get up at 4 in the morning to meditate, right? So I think really honoring where you're at. And so sometimes the best way that we can actually practice self-compassion is to do what it is that's necessary for you in that day. So, for example, maybe your form of self-care that day is sleeping in.
Yeah, that's true. That's my self-care routine every day.
I love that.
By accident.
Yeah. Sleep's very important.
I'm going to call it self-care now. That's my permission. I'm looking after myself. Okay.
I fully honor that.
I love that though. That's a really good outlook on it. And I've spoken about that before as well, changing it depending on what suits you and your lifestyle and what your values are, right? Because everybody's different. So thank you for sharing that. Now, let's pivot a little bit and tell me a little bit about kind of your journey through launch. But for you specifically, what was probably one of your biggest takeaways and how it helped your business pivot?
I think that one of the biggest takeaways through launch was understanding how to create a structure in my program and also understanding how to conduct sales. I think that there was a real lack of that masculine kind of energy in my business, and I think in general I have a lot more of like that feminine flow to me, like naturally, where I'm quite in tune with my emotions and I'm very in touch with kind of that intuitive side of life. And so that was actually why I hired Calvin, because I was looking for a mentor that would be able to balance that out and give me more structure and kind of not tough love, but I guess just, no bullshit.
100%. 100%. It's interesting that you called it, or it resonates with you, sorry, in regards to feminine versus masculine energy, because I'm very much the same as you. Do you find that running your business from a feminine energy standpoint, it's a lot of giving value, and in return, maybe sometimes our boundaries are crossed, or we find that we're putting everybody first, because we're just of service and we want to make sure everyone else is looked after, whereas that masculine energy comes in, it's about setting guidelines, setting boundaries, following routines, following structures and accountability, right? Do you understand the difference between the energies for yourself?
Yeah, I love that question because I feel like there's a lot of misconception around like feminine and masculine energy as well, and this is actually something that I teach my clients as well, because I just think it's so important. So terms that I actually like to use better than feminine and masculine are yin and yang, yin being the feminine and yang being the masculine, because I feel that, every single human being has both qualities, but sometimes we are naturally more tapped into one or the other. Yeah. And so I think through my experience of, really giving from this feminine side or this yin side, and then working with Calvin, I've learned the value of harnessing both. And I think that boundaries are just such an important element of well-being, whether we're looking at relationships or business or anything else. So I would definitely say that when I was in earlier stages of my business, it was more of a problem for me to overgive and have a lack of boundaries. But throughout my experience, I've just become so aware of the value of balancing both energies. So it's definitely something that I focus on now.
Yeah, perfect. And you're right. It definitely, you need both in business. I mean, it's so important, obviously, to give as much value as you can, but there needs to be that line where we're able to step up into that masculine or yang, as you call it, to set boundaries and stand up for ourselves and make sure we have that structure in our business. So that's an interesting takeaway that you've had from launch. And I'm glad that Calvin was able to give that to you. I'm sure you taught him a lot about feminine energy in business though. So he's very masculine in his business. So that's beautiful. And like I said earlier, guys, Desiree obviously is a part of our 10K club in launch. So what was it like hitting that milestone for you?
Yeah, honestly, that was a really proud moment for me in my business. It was something that I had on my vision board for the longest time. I feel
Aw.
like, in the space of entrepreneurship, we do focus a lot on these kind of external milestones. And it's funny because, again, like there's just nuance in everything. And I feel like having placed so much energy on that goal for such a long time and then having reached it, I definitely loved that experience, but I feel like it also taught me the value of placing more, I guess, emphasis on my internal feelings within my business as well, because I think we experience milestones every single day as entrepreneurs, and I feel like being able to lean into those smaller wins is just such an important part of not burning out. So, I think reaching my 10K milestone was really valuable for me in two senses. The one being that I showed myself that I can accomplish things that I put my mind to. The other being, I guess, that those external kind of goalposts aren't going to bring you all the happiness and fulfillment in the world, because you really need to be in alignment with yourself. So I think it also showed me the value of setting those more internal goalposts as well.
That is really beautiful. Wow, you're just full of golden nuggets today. I'm like writing so many notes. I was like, oh my God, this is so beautiful.
Thank
That is a
you.
really good outlook. I love that. That's so beautiful. So what's next for you? Obviously, you hit a really big milestone, and it obviously brought to the surface a lot of stuff for yourself that you might do differently moving forward. So what's next for you now that you've hit that milestone in your business? What are you working toward now?
Yeah, so I'm actually about to launch a new program. It's called Empowered Woman. So it's a 4-week group coaching program. And I think what's next for me is really creating more spaces for people to tap into their internal wisdom. I think that there can be so much noise out there in the world. And I think in the personal development and coaching space, a lot of the time we can be unconsciously conditioned to seek the answers outside of ourselves, whether that's in like quick tidbits that we pick up on Instagram or TikTok, or whether it's all these programs that promise these like massive outcomes. But I think that each of us, harnesses and holds so much wisdom within ourselves, and we truly do know all the answers that we need, but sometimes we just don't have the right support to
Mm.
find those answers and to live from a place of integrity and alignment. So that's really what Empowered Woman is all about, is helping women come home to themselves. And it's a program
Oh,
that
I
I've
love
priced
that.
at a really accessible price point, because I think that more people need to be able to access this kind of work. So that is what's next for me, and I really hope that as COVID starts to calm down, that I can also enter more in-person spaces,
Yeah.
because I'm such a people person, and
Yeah.
I think that, energy speaks. So I'd really love to be able to facilitate more like day retreats and in-person workshops and just create a wider community.
Yeah, that's beautiful, babe. I can definitely sense that energy about you, and you're a very giving person. And for anyone listening, I obviously follow you on Instagram. I think your posts are beautiful. So where can our listeners kind of follow some of your stuff that you're doing?
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate this opportunity. And if anybody would like to connect with me, probably the best place is on Instagram. My handle is Worthy Woman Wellness Initiative. It's a bit of a mouthful, but I'm sure Jade will put it in the show
Of
notes.
course. Yep.
Yeah. And then I also have a little link in my bio on Instagram that you can check out, and you can go and listen to my podcast. It's called the Soulful Sessions Podcast. And you can also check out my website, where I have a bunch of free resources and just ways that you can contact and connect with me.
Fantastic. I will definitely leave everything in the show notes. And I think if you guys really connected with Desiree, definitely jump on her podcast. She's got some beautiful stuff on there, as well as all of her posts on Instagram. Is there anything that you would like to say to the listeners before we let you go?
I guess just thank you so much for tuning in today, if you're still here and still listening all the way to the end. And if you are on any kind of journey, whether it is a personal development journey, a healing journey, or an entrepreneurial journey, just to never give up on yourself and always believe in yourself,
Aw.
as cheesy as it sounds. I think that, sometimes we can lose sight of how powerful we really are as individuals. And I think if you have a dream on your heart, it's there for a reason. So reach out and find any kind of resources or community or people that you need to keep you going and lift you up if you are struggling. And yeah, just never give up on yourself.
Stop it. I'm going to cry. That's so cute. I'm like, I'm not crying. You're crying. It is so beautiful, babe. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. We really appreciate it. I've definitely written more than a page of notes. So thank you so much for all of your value. And like she has shared, please make sure you jump over to all of her links and socials so you can check out more of her stuff. And we'll be cheering you on the sidelines when you launch your 4-week program. I might check it out myself. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us today, babe.
Amazing. Thanks, Jade.
No worries. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye.